morning, everyone. Time to go global now. I'm John My Crown. We start from the United Kingdom, where we hear that the impact of the US-Iran war seems to be biting really hard. The price of petrol has gone up to the highest level since the beginning of the war. And one group that seems to be facing it more, even though it cascades to everybody, is the transportation. That is bearing a bulk of all of that. We have a correspondent in London, Simon Pusey, joining us now. Hi, Simon. Good morning. I wonder how much it has increased by now, your transportation to and from the office.
Yeah, a very good morning to you. As you said, as of the 10th of August, today, the latest figures put the average UK petrol at around 160 pence per litre. That's the highest level since the Iran war began. Diesel is actually considerably worse at roughly 179 pence per litre. £80 to fill a normal petrol car isn't quite a national economic catastrophe, but it is significant, and it is a squeeze on household budgets. The bigger concern is that fuel is only really the first layer. If the oil shock continues, its effect will start appearing throughout the economy. So transport, deliveries, food production and flights, anything really that relies on petrol or diesel is affected. And something else that's also quite worrying is that the price at the pump tends to lag wholesale oil prices. So even if crude stops rising, or if it falls modestly, it can take some time for that to feed through to the forecast. So we may not have seen the worst of this yet.
Wow, that's unfortunate to hear. And this is even worse with what the Prime Minister has called fake discounts. And he says he's going to clamp down on that. What's this about? Issues around unwanted subscriptions and fake discounts?
Yeah, it's a real problem, but the evidence doesn't really suggest that UK discounts are fake, or that most of them are. The more accurate picture is that misleading promotions are widespread enough to matter. One striking example, let's just take a toothbrush, an Oral-B toothbrush advertised to loyalty customers at £34.99 versus £69.99. So that looks like a £35 saving, but which the Consumer Magazine and website found the product had actually been £34.99 for everyone immediately before and after that promotion. So the £69.99 comparison price gave a very misleading impression of the saving. For Andy Burnham, this is a quick and easy win. It's not going to save customers tons, but it will make sense and get good headlines out there. If you're saying you're going to tackle the problem, a win-win really for the government and consumers alike. But as I said, the scale of the win is pretty limited.
Yeah, well, talking about consumer protection there, and then I wonder if this is totally a good news. Britain's labour market report showing that recruiters have stopped shedding permanent staff, and there's a faster rise in starting salaries. Is this totally good news? And what's driving this?
Yeah, there are several things happening at once here, really. Some of the uncertainty seems to be clearing. So the Iran war, not as volatile as it was a few weeks ago, maybe. And also the Burnham bounce, the so-called Burnham bounce, seems to be giving people optimism politically. Also, businesses have been using temporary workers almost as a sort of halfway house. So companies aren't saying we don't need workers. They're more saying we don't want to commit to permanent headcounts. So temporary recruitment has consequently been a lot stronger. The June report recorded the fastest growing in temporary billings for more than 3 years. That suggests some businesses are now becoming sufficiently confident to convert at least part of that demand into permanent jobs. And salaries accelerating is an interesting point too. You might expect salaries to fall when there are lots of people looking for jobs, and there are still a lot of candidates available. But starting salaries are now rising faster. That tells us something important, that the labour market isn't uniformly weak. There are particular areas where employers still have difficulty finding the right people. For example, recruitment has picked up, particularly in legal, technology and accounting, while consumer-facing sectors such as retail and hospitality continue to be much weaker, and they struggle to find people. So I guess it depends on the sector when you're talking about jobs and when you're talking about salaries.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for clarifying that, Simon. And do have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
From the UK, we move to the United States, where the president there, Donald Trump, has said that Washington is relying on economic pressure rather than new military strikes to push Iran towards making a deal. He said that Iran is in very bad shape financially, citing high inflation, difficulty paying its own troops, and credited the U.S. naval blockade in place since April with deepening that pressure. Mr. Trump also said that falling oil prices, now just about $75 a barrel, have eased the economic impact on American consumers. Still talking war now, Ukrainian drone attacks have struck almost 24 warehouses operated by Russian online retailer Wildberries, destroying the inventory and raising the possibility of a state-backed rescue that could affect the country's banking sector. And this is according to Wall Street Journal. The latest attack has sparked a fire at a warehouse more than 1,000 miles from Ukrainian front. The strikes have damaged over 1 million square meters of storage space since the campaign started in July. Ukraine has described the facilities as legitimate target, citing Wildberries' sale of military equipment. The company previously operated an online section offering bulletproof vests, helmets, and other products associated with Russia's war effort, through the section, although the section is no longer visible. Merchants using the platform may have lost as much as $5 billion in inventory, according to Russian online retail research data. And in Asia, China's consumer price rose less than expected in July, while factory gate deflation eased, pointing to a still muted domestic price pressure despite recent signs of improvement in the world's second largest economy. The consumer price index, that's the CPI, went up 0.5% year on year in July, slowing from a 1% increase in June and reaching a 6-month low. This is according to official data from the National Bureau of Statistics of China. And then the reading is also along the forecasts of economists. On a monthly basis, CPI fell 0.1% compared with expectations for a 0.2% increase and a 0.3% decline in June. The producer price index, which measures prices at the factory gate, that dropped 3.5% year on year, narrowing from 4.1% decline in June, but missing the expectation of 3.8%. And still in China, even by profit standards of an AI era, CXMT Core, their trading has debuted in Shanghai. Within a few hours, the memory chip maker, seen as Beijing's best hope of reducing reliance on foreign suppliers and challenging the US in AI, surged more than 500% to become the most valuable stock in mainland China, eclipsing Industrial and Commercial Bank of China Limited, which held the top spot for years. And still within that region, South Korea's economic growth for this year is expected to accelerate further on strong global appetite for semiconductors. And this is according to a survey analysts say ahead of the Bank of Korea's interest rate decision that's to be held later on this month. Economists estimate South Korea's economy will expand 3.3% in 2026. That's up sharply from a 2.8% forecast in July. And finally, let's see what we'll be expecting for the rest of this week from around the world. Talking about economic data today, it's the year-on-year Japan's bank lending. That's expected today. Year-on-year Japan's banking. On Tuesday, Italian trade balance. That's expected. And from the UK, the retail sales monitor should be out. And then there's the German final CPI. That's their inflation month on month. And US core CPI for month on month and year on year. That's on Wednesday. On Thursday, New Zealand, 2-year inflation expectation. That's what we expect. And, well, unemployment claims from the United States. Remember, the jobs report was out, and we saw that they lost about 23,000 jobs on Friday. So unemployment claims should be out on Thursday to see how much they're going to spend on that. And then on Friday, French final CPI for month on month, as well in Canada, manufacturing sales month on month, and business inventory. So that's expectation, the data that we expect this week. And of course, this will drive investor sentiment in the different markets. And those are the global stories for now.